everyone. I am here with Peter Blum from Instart Logic. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thanks
for
so
having
much.
me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So Peter has been making quite the rounds here at ETail West, talking a lot about various different topics that are really important to retailers today. So I wanted to sit down with you and just talk a little bit about what Instart Logic does and what you have been speaking to retailers about. So why don't you just start by giving us a little introduction of the company and what you guys specialize in.
Sure. So we help e-commerce customers make their web experiences faster and better. And so part of what we do is we're a cloud service, and we help take their mobile, tablet, and desktop websites and make them load faster for the end users. And that's sort of where we get started with people, but one of the things we can also do is allow them to sort of imagine bigger, better experiences so they can deliver richer, more immersive sort of product images without impacting performance and ultimately without impacting conversions.
All right, so let's say I'm a retailer and I have decided I really want to make my mobile site better and more engaging and faster and all of those buzzwords, and I'm evaluating options out there. What does Instart Logic do for me that's maybe different from some of the other options I might come across?
Sure, so I think part of what makes our service unique is we understand applications and websites and how they work and how they interact in the browsers. And so we can make people's existing experiences faster, but I think the real power of the technology is that we can allow people to build bigger, better experiences. A lot of times we're seeing right now there's sort of this tension between a quality experience in terms of beautiful images, kind of interactivity and performance, and people are having to make a lot of trade-offs, and we allow them basically to have both. You can build a high-quality experience with high performance.
Now, how do you attack the idea of responsive design? This is a huge topic for a lot of retailers right now, mobile being one of the the biggest reasons for needing responsive design. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's really been interesting at the conference talking to a lot of the retailers about sort of what they're doing, and there's certainly a camp that are doing separate sort of mobile sites. But I think, what I've heard from a lot of people is they're just struggling with the sheer variety of mobile devices and the different screen sizes. And I think responsive has the promise of sort of being one site that can sort of adapt to the different capabilities of the devices that their customers are using.
Right.
So, it feels like we're in sort of version 1 of responsive websites right now. And I think, people are just starting to build their responsive websites and deploy them, and they're finding a lot of performance problems. Like they'll load okay for the desktop and laptop users, but really when it comes to the smartphones and tablets, there's some pretty big performance hurdles that I think people need to think about when they're designing these sites. And on the service side, our service can certainly make any website load faster, but we're actually building some capabilities to help people with their responsive websites. I think one of the Achilles heels has been images. People will send these great big desktop images to a little smartphone, which is way overkill, and it makes it take forever to load. And so we've actually added some capabilities where we can sense the device and actually right-size the images for the device and the experience, and it all comes back to fast performance for the end user, which ultimately means better conversions and more revenue.
Right. Now I have heard, I'm not sure whether this is true or not, or if if you agree, but playing devil's advocate, is responsive design a long-term fix or more of a band-aid solution?
My sense is there's not going to be an end to the variety of devices and the different screen sizes, and I think that's sort of the promise of responsive, is that it'll just sort of figure out, what can this device do and sort of right-size the display. So I think it's a long-term trend. I think, only the biggest customers can really build a desktop site, a mobile site, a tablet site. So responsive has that promise of a solution. It still feels like we're in the early days though, and I think some of what has to get figured out is better tools for the e-commerce retailers so that they can more easily build these responsive experiences. And then I think it's on vendors like ourselves to actually give them services to allow them to build and deliver fast responsive sites so that they're not impacting users. I did a webinar recently where we looked at an example responsive site from one of the big coffee companies, and it was beautifully designed. It looked great on the tablet, on the smartphone, on the desktop. The problem was it took over 30 seconds to load on a smartphone. and not a lot of people are willing to sit around and wait that long.
No.
So I think we're in the early days, but it certainly has the promise, I think, of being a solution to the device variability problem.
Right. Now, since you have been here since yesterday and you've been, talking to people and sort of picking people's brains, what is something that you have learned or that has piqued your interest that maybe has nothing to do with what Instart Logic does?
I think it was sort of hearing about the different ways people are attacking conversions and sort of looking at sort of the two camps around responsive and non-responsive and mobile site. Can I do that one over? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. We'll go back. Okay. So, since you've been here, a day and a half now, and you've been talking to a lot of retailers, a lot of other vendors, what is something that you have learned or something that's piqued your interest that maybe has something to do with Instart Logic or maybe doesn't at all?
Yeah, I think, what the interesting thing was kind of going back to what you were talking about with responsive websites or mobile websites. It certainly feels like there's very strong opinions on either side.
Interesting.
And that's something that really surprised me. I think there's a set of people who are strongly, passionately believe that they should create dedicated mobile or tablet experiences.
Right.
And then there's this other camp that's sort of equally passionate, about creating these responsive experiences. I think one of the things that surprised me is, there were some people on the panel that were talking about their journey of creating these responsive web experiences. And it turned out that it sort of felt like they were spending about the same amount of effort because they'd build something and they'd get it working for most of the smartphones and tablets, but they'd spend sort of 80% of their time getting it to work for the remaining few, popular smartphone and tablets. So I think that was a surprise that, responsive isn't actually as easy as, people think once they really get in there. It's, likely right now the equivalent amount of work is doing a dedicated mobile site. And that was something certainly that I thought was pretty surprising coming into it.
Very cool. Well, in the vein of keeping things fun and interesting and not all business, what's something that inspires you? I know, that's always the one that stumps everyone, right? Okay, well, we can do another fun one. Okay, let me think of something else. All right, so, since we're here at ETail, we're trying to keep things fun and interesting and, talk about business, but also about just other stuff. Where is your favorite place to travel?
Probably my favorite place to travel would probably be a lot of people's favorite place is Hawaii.
Ah, good one.
There's something about just being on an island. The weather certainly helps, sitting by the beach. And so I've got a trip in a month to go to Hawaii, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to with my kids.
That will be very nice.
Yeah.
That will be very nice, especially since we're here in Texas, and unfortunately we have not been blessed with the best weather.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get nice when we leave, of course. But it was great talking to you, and
Thanks
I really appreciate it, and look forward to all of our viewers learning a little bit more about what you guys do.
Great.
So thank you.
Yes.